And now, coming to you live from Kalispell, Montana, it's Excellence in Voting Radio with your host, James White. Okay, I'm your host, James White. This is EIV Radio, brought to you by Northwest Liberty News. Thanks so much for joining me here today. Sorry we had a little bit of last-minute connection issues there. You know, as usual, they always occur last minute. You know how that always goes. And but we're going to play through it like we always do, and we're going to hopefully continue to keep bringing you the best candidates available here in the state of Montana for this upcoming primary, and today is no exception. We have Sheridan Buck joining us today, and I'm going to try to bring over I had an image of her. I'm going to bring it over here for her because we've had some issues with Skype, of course, not connecting properly, but I'm going to give her a proper introduction here, and I will bring her on the program, and she can unmute her microphone. Joining me, as I said, is Sheridan Buck. Sheridan is a proud first-generation Montanan, just like two-thirds of Montana's governors have been. For 3 decades, she was proud to be a military wife. Her husband of 35 years is Lieutenant Colonel Mike Buck. Sheridan believes in Montana's traditional values and is a committed Christian. She enjoys working with youth and seniors in and out of church. She loves living here, and she's invested in her community. She's a founding member of the steering committee that has built a much-needed fire station. That the project was funded entirely by donations, not a single tax dollar. She has broad experience in politics from the grassroots level and upward. In 2014, she was endorsed by the National Rifle Association and the Montana Family Foundation. She's a former chairwoman of the Cascade County Republican Central Committee, and she was a congressional committee woman and was twice elected as a precinct captain. She served 2 terms as an election judge and a poll watcher, and she has worked for over 6 successful campaigns. Sheridan Buck, that's a lot. Thanks so much for joining us here on EIV Radio.
Hi, how are you?
Well, I'm very good. Thanks so much again for being here. We appreciate that. Wow, you really have done an awful lot. You have done it sounds like you're, and that's the kind of people that I like to associate with, to be honest with you, Sheridan. You know, we have the thing that I had over here, the complaint that I had here around the Flathead Valley was that we have meetings, we draw 400 or 500 people at these meetings, and then the meeting would go away, and like the same 10 people would be doing this stuff over and over again to the same handful. It sounds like you are one of those 10, to me.
That's pretty common. You're going to have your core group, and they're the hard hitters, and they carry the water all the time, and it's pretty tough to keep them from getting burnt out. It's a tough road.
It is indeed. And, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you the same thing that I ask everybody here recently that has been on the broadcast. Just give us, before we get into the nuts and bolts of things here, give me an overview, if you can, about the situation that we have here in this country. We have seemingly tyrants that have finally rose to the surface. And in a few states, they're locking people down still, arresting people for opening their shop. Now in Montana here, it hasn't been as bad because our governor, I think, is running for Senate. That's why he's probably doesn't want such bad press. But just give us your overall general before we get into sort of give us the macro before we get into the micro here about Montana. What's your overall thoughts, not necessarily as a candidate, just as one human being to another, just your overall, your perspective on what we're going through right now in a nation that's basically unprecedented?
We're definitely living in a unique time. Go ahead. I have a little bit of feedback. Sorry about that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is, my husband and I had a good conversation earlier this morning. This isn't new. We're living, this is social engineering 101. Do we have a problem? Yeah, we have a problem. But like you said, the good part of this is who's being exposed for what side they're on. And one of the things, it hit me last night while I was trying to go to sleep that this isn't the first time they've shut things down. Go back when they did the government shutdowns and all of the federal employees were on furlough and all of the chaos that ensued when that happened, when they didn't get their paycheck. But guess what? The economy didn't shut down, and the economy just barreled through, and it grew. And then they did the experiment. Go back to the Ebola nurse on the bicycle who refused to stay home, and everybody said, hey, you've been exposed to something really bad. You need to be responsible. Get back in your house. And of course, all the tyrants, like you said, screamed, well, it's her rights to do what she wants. Well, not when she's being typhoid Mary, possibly. But then again, you've got the whole attack on the entire economy and every person living in this country. And at this point, you have to go, we don't live under a dictator. We are free Americans, and we can be responsible. And so you look at, well, who is the most vulnerable? Well, it's apparent it was these nursing homes and these elderly, or the people who have an immune system that's compromised already. So you need to take that and go, okay, let's circle the wagons around that, and let's contain that. If you look at what happened in Florida, I mean, the governor there's like, we are doing this right. Move over. And I got to tell you, the biggest attack that I see is on the middle class, your mom and pops. And, this isn't new. Go back to the hairdresser. Go back to the florist. Now you've got Shelly, the hairdresser down in Texas. And people are standing up. You've got a barber up in Michigan. This is real people and real lives and real things. And for us to kowtow to the government when we know how to be responsible, we know the risk, and we know if somebody comes into our business, we're responsible for doing everything we possibly can. And it's funny, move the government over. The government can say, here's our issue. We want to do X, Y, Z, but here's what you need to do. And people are smart. I was recently in a situation where I had to help a family member because of health issues. I had to be the driver. And so I pulled up in front of a strip mall, and there was a cleaner business on the very end of the building, and it was so eye-opening. I actually took a picture of this place because here it is. The government said, you're not essential. Where they figured it out. They had a drive-through. They put a window in their front window, a little drop box, so you could drop your clothes into the box. And then they took their waiting room, and instead of having people standing there, they accommodated people. They made these lockers like your Amazon people would, and you could, I don't know if you scanned it with your phone. I didn't get to see somebody walk up and do that, but you could go get your clothes and never have contact with a person. They still kept their business open, and people were safe. And that's how Americans do it. They can figure it out, and the government just needs to back off a little bit and figure out where the problem really lies.
Well, we found ourselves in a situation, Sheridan, where government is in a position to pick winners and losers. I mean, I just saw where the Walmart stock is up 140, or sales are up 141%. Other retailers that were allowed, able to stay open. Amazon, of course, it's online business, but still, they're a large retailer, of course. Their stock is up, but yet mom and pop and middle, small businesses have suffered, some of them upwards of 40% loss. I mean, this is not ever a position that we want to put the citizens in, where the government is in charge of choosing winners and losers. Isn't that fascism? When the government chooses the winners and losers in business, that's fascism, I think.
Well, I was just in the Austin airport on Tuesday. In fact, maybe on the break, I will forward you the pictures. This is Austin, Texas, the capital of Texas, right? And you've got the capital, you've got a music scene, you've got a college town in there. The airport was shut down, ghost town. There were two, like a little quick shop open in one restaurant that served beer and some sandwiches. And they had the concourse blocked off after 5 gates. All of those gates, as far as you could see, were shut down with all of the businesses. Think of the jobs. We had to park, and there was nobody to pick us up to get to the terminal either. The buses, those jobs are gone. It's bad, and we need to stand back up to it. We really do. And these government guys, they're still getting their paycheck, and then you've got Congress who just now started a proxy vote. Come on, and they're not having to show up, but they want their paycheck, but God forbid if anybody else wants their paycheck. So it's a mess. It really is.
Well, when if you are successful in your candidacy and you are in Helena here coming up in the early part of 2021, when actually people report there, we're going to face I believe we're going to have a situation where we're going to, undoubtedly, you just stated it. You just said this job's gone, that job's gone, those people don't work here anymore. That's going to be in Montana as well in some sense. So there's going to be a loss of the tax base because people, frankly, there's not going to be as many people working. What in the world is going to have to happen? Are we going to be forced, do you think? Either one of two things can happen. If you want to maintain the same level of government you had before, one of two things are going to have to happen. You're going to have to somehow print money, which we can't do, or you're going to have to raise taxes. Or, of course, the other side would be shrink government. Do you think we're going to move towards the raise taxes, or do you think we're going to move towards the shrink government solution coming up here in 2021? Any thoughts on it? I know you don't know, but any thoughts?
I'd love to hear what Lou Jones and the boys have in the works, right?
That's right. And
they're all
girls.
about padding their paychecks.
And the girls.
So, yeah, we definitely need to shrink government. We need to go in there. We've got our wants versus our needs. And people need to really streamline that. We have gotten so out of balance. Our country used to be government provided XYZ, and then your communities and your churches, they picked up the ball where it was needed. And so many nonprofits are doing the things that the churches should be doing, and the government is doing what the churches should be doing. And that's a two-edged sword right there. So many of your churches have become watered down. And this has been going on for years. And we need to step back up and plug back in. As far as Helena, yeah, we need to shrink the government. I'm not in favor of raising taxes, and I'm not in favor of a new tax. The only way that comes up is if you get rid of a property tax. You also need to open up Montana. We are the state of resources here, and look at the jobs through the years that have been lost with logging, and now the coal strip deal, and you've got them fighting this pipeline coming in. Get smart, Montana, and move over. We have got to be, we can do things. I know the environmentalists flip out, but we're smarter now. And we aren't this country that's just going to go in there and rip it apart. But at some point, there's got to be a give and take. And, your own household income, you don't spend more than you got. And you've got to tighten the belt. And, a perfect example is when my husband and I were transitioning out of active duty Air Force to go into the civilian world. It was expensive to do that, to get those licenses to go into the airlines, etc. And my kids, they ate nutritious meals. They never saw a different day in their life. My husband and I, on the other hand, we had bologna and ramen and coffee. And that's just how we did it. It was needs versus wants, and we made it happen. And that's what Montana has to do. And it may be a very exhausting conversation, but my question would be, why did the other side want to continue to grow and continue to bankrupt this state? When the Medicaid expansion came on, my first question to Buttrey and the boys was, and of course it fell on deaf ears, was what happens when Uncle Sugar goes away? Who's going to be footing that bill? It's going to be Montanans, and we don't have any more money. It's almost to the point where I want to say, here's my ATM number, go ahead.
Get smart, Montana. Get smart, Montana. I like that. Okay, we're going to take a quick commercial break here, and when we get back on the other side, we're going to dig into some other things here, some other core issues, and we're going to have you give out, of course, your websites and stuff like that at the very end. If you could go ahead and hit that mute button for me, I'd appreciate that. I could put you on hold, but I don't want to lose you. If you could just go ahead and hit the mute button, and I'll be back here just on the other side of these brief messages with Sheridan Buck.